Within 2 years, American combat troops are due to withdraw from Afghanistan. Yet with NATO's war against the Taliban moving towards a stalemate, the prospect of future civil conflict looks ever more likely. As part of an occasional series of reports on the countdown to 2014, People and Power has been to the Afghan capital, Kabul, a city hoping for the best but starting to prepare for the worst.
It's extraordinary that Kabul city exists at all after 35 years of war. Invaded by the Soviet Red Army, violently liberated by the Mujahideen, and then almost entirely destroyed by the civil war that followed, the city's spirit appears unbreakable. Now, after 11 years of NATO intervention and billions of dollars of aid and investment, Kabul is a changed city. The centre of politics and economics, Kabul is the seat of all power in Afghanistan. And the man running this city, the mayor of Kabul, is focused on the future. Known as the builder of Kabul, Mayor Nawandish spends long hours poring over the minute details of city management.
کار به خاطر از اینکه ما اونا سنگای بسیار بدرنگ و بی‌کیفیت آوردن در اونجا می‌خواستن کار کنن، یک قسمتش ما کندم. ما گفتم برش میاد تلفن که بعد از اگر ما بیام و انجینری که موظف است در اونجا در ساحه نباشه و دفتر قلف باشه، از اونجا رئیس کتاب انجینر منتخب می‌کنیم یک ما شکایت کردم، انجینر شما شکایت نمی‌کنه، برای اینکه ممکن است از قراردادی یک چند نفر بگیره بعد از شکایت دیگه نمی‌کنه. احتمال از این وجود داره که در اینجا فساد وجود باشه.
The mayor insists on getting out each day to inspect ongoing projects, despite being a high-profile target. He freely admits his biggest challenge is fighting the rampant and institutionalized corruption that plagues his city.
The Kabul city is destroyed. It needs to work. When I became mayor of Kabul, I announced 24-item programs for Kabul city. The first item was fighting against the corruption. Fighting against the corruption and fighting against the mafia, land mafia. You can see all these buildings are under construction. We planned this area. Now everywhere you can see a lot of construction work is going on the city. نه این پر کار نکردن میبینی؟ این خوب از انگاب میشم. در انگاب میمانه دیگه. سرسری کاغل واری میکنن. اگر این پر کار شود سرک بسیار مسئول میباشه. کار یک شام نام مکمل در مسئله خالی کار شده. اگر پر کار شود نه اما پارچه هم مسئله را اگر نرم میگیره اینجا را پر کنه بر 10 سال دیگه سرک مسئول میباشه. این رقم تدریجی او میره اون سرک خراب میکنه.
Kabul has gone through massive changes. Not just the physical change of building, but in the mindset of its inhabitants. But this change is fragile, built on a foundation of Western funding, and people know it could all collapse as quickly as it was built. And everywhere you go, people worry about what will happen next. In a back street in Kabul, Marifat High School tells its students the future starts here. But at a meeting of the school governors, talk quickly turns to politics.
In this 10 years, Afghanistan has embraced a very great change in all aspects of its life. For example, Taliban in 2000 and 2001, they were very strong. They could control 95% of the country. But during this 10 years, they have lost thousands of their main commanders. In the mission that we had in a war on terror, we have succeeded a lot.
You talked about the numbers, you didn't talk about the number we lost. We lost 1 decade and lots of lives. I believe we did half a part we could do. So we fight and kill them, but we didn't fight the roots which they had. And now, as you see, we have the same problem as we had a decade before. So can we say we still win the war with the Taliban? I don't believe that.
I would say that we should include the Taliban into the political process of Afghanistan. We should allow them that they should implement their Sharia law in certain provinces of Afghanistan, for example, in the south.
I disagree.
Okay.
In my idea, Taliban is not an independent body. Taliban is only a project or a tool that's used by other countries. They are not interested to start negotiating. Rather, they are getting ready for 2014.
2014 is the year that all conventional US troops will leave Afghanistan, as announced by President Obama in 2011. President Hamid Karzai must also leave in 2014, as his second term in office comes to an end. He is barred by the Constitution from standing for a third term, and so elections must be held. With these two major events happening in the same year, and a general breakdown of government control, Kabul stands on the edge of an abyss.
You see a growing gap between the people and the government, and you see an atmosphere of mistrust. There are areas where people are so fed up with local government that they prefer Taliban. Post elections last time, my hope was that we all might have learned lessons, but unfortunately we haven't seen any sign of change. The opportunity provided for Afghanistan was a golden one. Afghanistan was reborn, a nation rising from the ashes of a war.
Kabul suffered horribly during the Soviet occupation. But it is the civil war that followed, referred to as the factional fighting, that almost destroyed the city and has left the deepest scars. Babar Garden is around 500 years old and was ruined in the civil war. It is slowly being restored, but already it's clear that it is loved by the people.
I was a little child, would come to this garden every Friday with my family. It was very peaceful. Mujahideen took over Kabul. This garden turned up to be the front line. The garden was completely destroyed by war. When we left our house, we didn't know we wouldn't come back here for more than 16 years when the factional war started. And we lived in the front line for almost 6 months, and we were hiding in an underground for 3 months. We lost a lot of family members, like uncles, cousins.
The anger over the loss of life during the civil war is still raw in Kabul. Many people point out that those very warlords responsible are now the people in power. Challenging the established political elite in Kabul are younger, more outspoken men, determined to force their way into the city's political scene.
Current government is a government of a clique, a tiny, tiny clique in control of not only political power, but also state resources. Whether it is cement or gold or oil or gas or minerals of other types, it is all in the monopoly of the people in power.
From the very beginning, the problem is the manipulation of power in this country. In 1994, when the Taliban Islamic movement started their work for bringing peace and security to this country and removing all those chaos and insecurity created by former Mujahideen commanders or Mujahideen warlords. They came in power in the end of 1996 in September, but they repeated the same mistake. In 2001, when Taliban regime collapsed and a regime came in power here in this country, they started to exclude other people also from the power.
Kabul is a dynamic melting pot where traditional rural values clash with modern liberal ideas. One of the changes heralded at the beginning of the Afghan war was the championing of women's rights. While it is now accepted that women's lives haven't improved much in the provinces, in Kabul, one woman is building a business that aims to bring the people together to build trust in this divided city.
The work becomes a mediator. The clothing and the tailoring, it becomes the dialogue. And I think we need to have this dialogue between, different ages, different ethnic. I have Hazara, I have Pashtun, I have those different ethnic within my group. So I'm not here just to produce. My vision is something a bit bigger, to create an environment where they can work together, where they can share and communicate and create.
This vision is shared by the Turquoise Mountain Foundation, which is committed to the preservation of traditional arts and culture through the education of young Kabulis.
با توجه اداره ما یا با دانستن تا این اندازه یک هزار شاگرد جذب تربیه کنیم و اینا در دوران جنگ از بین رفته بود.
In the narrow streets of Kabul's ancient bird market, memories of the Taliban's rule are still strong.
20 سال است که یه دکان دارم. حال بسیار خوب شد. طالبا پیش طالبا یک چند بیامت اعلام میکرد برای این دکاندارا کلش جمع شدن رفتن که ما ایجاد 40 سال 80 سال اینجا مردم هستن پرنده ملنه که باید اعلان نکردن دیگه. گفت خرید فروخت نکنید نپرونه بعد کفتر مفتر نپرونه باشی چیزی نپرونه خرید فروخت نکنید بود دیگه چیزی نگفتن.
But these men don't worry about a Taliban return or a civil war.
کار به دست خدا هیچ کسی کارش پیش از پی گفتن نمیتونه کل کار به دست خدا هر رقم ریجی هر رقم مردم به پرنده کوچه پرنده 10 سال بعد 20 سال بعد 100 سال بعد این کوچه پدرای ما را و کلانای ما را کلش پیر کرده کشته هر رقم ریجی به مردم دشه خدا هیچ کس هر رقم ریجی به طالب هر رقم مردم که به بدر هر ریجی که به کل مردم نمیشه خدا کسی گفتن نمیتونه بکرد.
Kabul sits on the old Silk Road and has been a trading city for thousands of years. Today's businessmen may not ride camels or trade spices, but their concern with profit and loss is the same as their ancestors.
مگر دا اعلان چې دوی وشي چې په 2014 کې مونږ وجود هغه نه ورسته زمونږ کاروبار د یو کال نه تر بل کال پورې خرابېږي. کاروبار درلود دغه مونږ کلنیز چې کوم سیلز ټرنوور هغه 4.1 میلیون ډالر په 2010 کې هغه کاروبار دغه نه هم نور خشه چې هغه تقریبا 15.1 میلیون ډالر شو.
In fact, figures show that Mr. Safi's business declined sharply in 2011, falling by 31% or $2.2 million compared with the previous year. And just like him, the business community of Kabul is angry at President Obama's announcement, and they are looking at getting out of the country.
نو د دې لپاره موږ هم ولې کوشش دغه وسانه چې کوم حالات دي دا موږ په نظر کې نیسو سره زمونږ آینده فکر نه کوم که دونه سره نو دغه لپاره موږ هم د دې نه مخکې موږ په دوبۍ کې بعضې کاروبارونه سره شروع کړي وو.
Afghanistan's central bank says that 4.6 billion in cash was legally exported from Kabul airport in 2011. Considering the Afghan government received 6.37 billion in development aid in 2010, questions have been asked about aid spending and accountability. On the streets of Kabul, Mayor Nawandish is also determined to hold people to account. Visiting projects every day, he takes a hands-on approach.
این کلش اینی خراب میکنه درخت. این درخت از رشد میمانه. تا اینجا باید درخت باید چنه باشه. بعد از این باید بلند شه.
His battle with corruption is not just against the land mafia. He also has to deal with employees getting jobs on the basis of connections rather than their ability.
چالان میکردن اونو برق لایتای خورترک میوردن بازور اون از اون صندوق واز میکردن لاین خودانو بسته میکردن
کی گروپ هست نو تو بان چه گپ میزنی تو بان گپ پذیر گوش کن
شاروال صاحب تو بازا
خب اینجا روشن میکردن که تو بازی کنن خب خوب میکردن این خب گپ بد نیست بسیار خوب کردن رئیس محترم تو در روزای اول کاروبارت خوب بود پس دوباره سقوط کردی فهمیدی؟ آمر پارک هم اینجا نیست یکیش میگه ریاست رفته دیگیش میگه قلعه وزیر رفته امی پارک کی مراقبت کنه کی باید اکمالات کنه لاین برقش هنوز معلوم نیست میگه از طرف شو برق نداره چراغاش از طرف شو گل است مردم اینجا استفاده فهمیدین آمر پارکت امیم امروز منفک کازوجه دیگه نبینم فهمیدی
Many members of the Taliban, from foot soldiers to leaders, have indicated an interest in reconciliation.
It has become clear that Western leaders have decided the most politically expedient message to deliver to their own voters is that the Afghanistan mission is done and the troops are coming home.
The goal that I set, to defeat al-Qaeda and deny it a chance to rebuild, is now within our reach.
The mission is not accomplished. And the mission is not done, the enemy is not dead. You can call your exit anything, you can give it any title. For as long as the mission is not done, it will mean retreat.
The Taliban are in fact already calling the NATO withdrawal a retreat, and people worry about what this means for the achievements that have been made in Afghanistan.
Women's situation in Afghanistan is very much related and linked to democracy, to freedom of speech, to freedom of media. If we go to reduce those values, certainly women issue will also get worse. We see that women issue have become a matter of revenge between Taliban, international community / the government of Afghanistan. So for Taliban to undermine this achievement, they've gone to some of the most horrible kinds of violence, including shooting a woman dead in front of everybody's eyes or killing innocent people.
But now the war rages harder than ever, with the Taliban challenging the government in the heart of the city. As the Taliban threaten to encircle Kabul, people's fears are clear.
طالب نباید دیگه بس از بسیار مردم افغانستان رنج خسته شد است از آمدن طالب دیگه بس است دیگه طالب کس نمیخواهد
Talking to young Afghans, it doesn't take very long for their fears for the future to reveal themselves either.
All the young people, even the master degree, the bachelor degree, who have studied, passed their time in education, one idea they have, they are leaving the country. My friends, best friends, all left Afghanistan because they are afraid of coming of Taliban. I think the fighting will be start again. So 80-85% people are thinking like that. So here is a website. Daily, if you check, this is the website almr1.org. The Taliban demand and what they are doing daily, who they have killed of the government and local people, and also the foreigners, the military troops of foreigners.
This is the Kabul Military Training Center, where the officers and soldiers of the Afghan National Army are prepared for war.
صرف موږ خپل نور پیشنهاد نه لرو موږ پیشنهاد دا لرو چې ته کولی شې چې دا زما خبره خپل مقامات ته ورسې حتما ورته موږ د تاسو نه دا هیله لرو چې یعنې افغانستان اردو تر څو چې خارجي مملکتونه ورسره کومک ونه لري.
Janaka joined the Afghan National Army as soon as it was created and has fought the Taliban for the last 10 years. Originally a foot soldier, he graduated as an officer in 2010 and was posted at a base on the edge of Kabul. He is one of the guardians of the city.
فعلا چې موږ ته چې کوم ضرورت ده اول قدم کې زموږ هوایي نیرو چې ونه لري ځمکني نیرو کې ورته ځکه چې ارادي چې د هر ځای کې ارادي په نفع د دشمن ده.
But Janaka fears for the future of Kabul after the Americans leave in 2014.
لیکن آینده ورته تاسو مشخص نوم یې اخلم ایران د پاکستان نه افغانستان به داسې وګرځي چې هغه وخت چې طالبانو اوس به طالبانو مکمل د جهان القاعده په افغانستان کې ځای په ځای شي لیکن نه تنها چې افغانستان له منځه ځي مکمل جهان به له منځه یوسي.
I think the Taliban will not try to grab power unilaterally here in Afghanistan. The only solution will be national participation in power. Negotiation and talks is the only way to listen to each other.
Why the West is saying we talk to the Taliban? Because the Taliban behead more people. What if the Taliban beheaded 17 Americans? Will the Americans still be pushing for reconciliation?
Skateistan is a very different type of charity, reaching out to the kids of Kabul, regardless of social class, ethnicity or gender. Over half of Skateistan's pupils are marginalised street kids and nearly 40% are girls. And even here, the kids fear for their future.
When I'm skateboarding, I'm feeling like I'm a bird, and I really love this skateboarding.
یک چوب است که 4 تایر داره. روی نامش سکیت بورده. بزرگ است که سکیت مثلا 6 سال میشه سکیت میکنه. تو میخوای یک دفعه؟
If the American people goes, I think the Taliban will come, and the Taliban don't allow me to go outside on the home, then Americans should be here because they are good. They are good people, and I know that.
But the Americans are leaving, and Kabul sinks further into war. Just a few days after this was filmed, Medina and some other kids from Skateistan were caught up in a suicide bombing. Medina wasn't hurt, but 5 of her friends were not so lucky and died in the explosion.
After 2014, when the international troops pull out from Afghanistan, I have no fear of the Taliban. It's almost impossible for the Taliban to come back and occupy Kabul. My only fear is the factional war.
My advice and my suggestion to President Obama and all of the presidents and rulers in the Western countries not to deceive their own people. If the world community left Afghanistan after 2014 without bringing peace and security in this country, I am afraid that Afghanistan will be again indulged in civil war in this country, and that will be more furious, more dangerous than it was in the past.
Sharinau Park is a playground at the heart of the city. But in 2 years' time, Kabulis will again watch a superpower leave. Much of the aid money will go with them, which could destroy the fragile Afghan economy. As for Kabul, whether the Taliban could actually retake the capital is still open to question, but most people here expect them to try. With worsening security and a government losing legitimacy, all-out civil war is a very real threat. If that happens, the progress that Kabul has made in the last decade could be thrown into reverse, and this time it might never recover.